Have you ever really stopped to wonder why a plant has the name it does? It seems like a simple question, right? But the story of how we name things, especially plants, goes way beyond just science. It's a story about human history, our deepest philosophies, and honestly, our basic will to survive. So, let's get into it.
Okay, I want you to imagine you're one of our earliest ancestors. The world is basically a giant, unlabeled pharmacy and grocery store, all rolled into one. And the questions you're asking every single day are literally matters of life and death. Figuring out the plant world wasn't some academic exercise, it was the absolute key to seeing the next sunrise.
And these two images, they perfectly sum up the journey we're about to take. We start on the left, right, where we're classifying plants based on pure, desperate necessity. And we end up on the right, where classification is driven by scientific curiosity, that deep desire to understand nature just for the sake of understanding it.
Here's the thing you've got to remember through all of this. No system for classifying stuff is perfect or timeless. It's always a snapshot of its era, and it's always shaped by these four big forces: what people need, what they already know, what they believe about the world, and of course the technology they have to work with.
So, let's kick things off at the very beginning. Our story really starts with these two huge, and you might think competing ideas: the super practical need for survival, and that first massive intellectual jump towards trying to find some kind of order in the natural world.
I mean, look at this. These ancient hunter-gatherers, they were, out of sheer necessity, the world's first taxonomists. They learned through, brutal trial and error which plants could feed you, which could heal you, and which would kill you. Simple as that. If you couldn't tell the difference, you just didn't last very long.
And for thousands of years, it was all about survival. But then, along come the ancient Greeks, and the whole reason for classifying starts to shift. It's not just about utility anymore. Philosophers like this guy, Aristotle, they looked at the world and started asking a brand new question. Not just, what can I do with this plant, but how does this all fit together? They were searching for a divine order in all the chaos.
And this was his big idea, the scala naturae, or the ladder of life. What's so fascinating here is the concept. Aristotle saw this fixed divine hierarchy. It's a ladder that starts with inanimate objects, like rocks at the bottom, then moves up through plants, then animals, and then, of course, humans, perched right near the top, just a little below the angels. It was a beautiful, philosophical idea, but it wasn't exactly science.
But then you have Aristotle's student, Theophrastus, and what he did was take that grand philosophical ladder and apply it really systematically to the green world all around him, and for that, he earned the title the Father of Botany.
He was really the first to look past just what a plant was good for. He described almost 500 different plants, not by their use, but by their actual form, whether it was a tree, a shrub, or an herb. He even noticed their life cycles, and was the first person to describe the tiny, intricate parts of a flower. This was the birth of looking at plants with a truly scientific eye.
All right, let's jump forward a few centuries. After a long, quiet spell in European science, that pendulum swings right back toward the practical. All of a sudden, the need for plant knowledge just explodes, and it's driven by two massive forces: medicine and exploration.
So you get this perfect storm of events. First, the invention of printing means that knowledge can finally be shared widely and accurately. At the same time, explorers are flooding Europe with all these bizarre new plants nobody's ever seen before. And to study them, these physic gardens start popping up all over the place specifically to figure out their medicinal properties. And the main output of this era? These incredible books called herbals. Think of them as giant, illustrated encyclopedias totally dedicated to the medicinal uses of plants. For any doctor or apothecary, these were the absolute go-to guides.
But, and this is a big but, this era wasn't all hard science. A lot of practical knowledge got mixed up with folklore and mythology. I mean, just look at this drawing of a mandrake root. It's depicted as a little person. The classification here is based on what it looks like to a human, on mythology, not just on objective, observable facts.
So with all these new plants and all these different names, things were getting chaotic. The world basically needed a hero, someone who could bring a simple, elegant order to this whole mess, and that person turned out to be a Swedish biologist named Carl Linnaeus.
So Linnaeus walks into this world where one single plant might have 5 or 6 different super long descriptive Latin names. It was a nightmare. His goal was to create one single universal system that everyone could use to identify plants and talk to each other about them. And his solution was,
Well, it was revolutionary because it was so simple. Binomial nomenclature. 2 names, that's it. A first name for the genus, think Homo, and a second for the species, like sapiens. This 2-word system was so clear, so concise, and so universal, it just took over the world.
So the big question is, how did he decide which plants went into which group? Well, the foundation of his entire elegant system was based on something, let's just say it was a little bit scandalous for its time: the sexual characteristics of flowers.
Yep, you are reading that correctly. Linnaeus classified plants by counting their reproductive parts, the stamens and pistils, and he gave them these wonderfully human-sounding names. Monodrondria was for plants with 1 stamen, or 1 husband. Diandria was for 2 husbands, and so on. It was a totally strange but brilliant system that pretty much anyone could learn and use.
But here's the twist. Even Linnaeus' amazing system had a major flaw, and it was one that he actually recognized himself. It was an artificial system. It was a clever fix for a messy problem, but it was about to be replaced by one of the most powerful ideas in the history of science.
And that's the incredible thing, Linnaeus knew it. He totally understood that his system was just a convenient filing cabinet. It was a great way to organize things, but it wasn't a true representation of how plants were actually related to each other. It wasn't a family tree.
Think about it like this. It's like organizing your library by the color of the book covers. Yeah, it's simple, and it works if you just want to find a red book quickly. But it tells you absolutely nothing about the stories inside, or which authors influenced each other. His system did the same thing. It would group totally unrelated plants together just because they happened to have the same number of stamens. So this system, while super practical for identifying plants, was kind of a scientific dead end. It had no predictive power. Knowing a plant had 2 stamens told you nothing about whether it might share properties with another plant in its group. But its biggest weakness, the one that would change everything, was that it gave you 0 clues about their real family history, their shared ancestry stretching back through time.
And then, in a simple little notebook, came the answer. This sketch by a young Charles Darwin with those famous words, "I think." It completely blew up Aristotle's static ladder and replaced it with a dynamic, branching tree of life. This wasn't a filing system anymore. This was a family tree, showing how all of life was connected.
And that brings us to one final, really big question. We've gone from seeing life as a ladder, with us humans sitting comfortably at the top, to seeing it as this vast, sprawling tree, where we're just one tiny twig on one of many, many branches. So if that's the case, what does that really say about our place in the grand scheme of things?